The night shift on Orbital Station Meridian 7 was always quiet. Tae-won walked through the empty corridors with his flashlight, checking every door and corner. He had been working as a security guard here for 3 years now. Most nights were boring, which was exactly how he liked it. Boring meant safe. Boring meant everyone could sleep peacefully. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he entered the cargo section. This area was huge, filled with containers from dozens of different worlds. Strange smells mixed together here. Some cargo smelled like flowers, others like chemicals, and some smelled like nothing humans had words for. Tae-won had learned to ignore it all. He was checking his tablet when he heard something. A small sound, like a whimper. Tae-won stopped walking and listened carefully. There it was again. It sounded like a child crying. His training told him to call it in first, but his instincts made him move toward the sound. He walked faster, his hand moving to the radio on his belt. The crying was coming from Section D7, where the diplomatic cargo was stored. That area was supposed to be completely sealed and empty right now. Tae-won ran now. The crying was getting louder, and he could hear something else too. A grinding sound, like metal scraping against metal. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness until he saw it. One of the massive cargo containers was tilting to the side. Its stabilizers were sparking and failing. Inside the container, through a small gap, he could see a child. She was small, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. She was looking right at him, her face wet with tears. Her small hands were pressed against the gap, trying to push it wider. Tae-won's heart pounded. The container was going to collapse. He could see the support beams bending. He grabbed his radio and yelled into it. "This is Tae-won, Section D7. I have a child trapped in a failing container. I need emergency services now." The voice on the other end started asking questions, but Tae-won was already moving. He dropped the radio and ran to the container. The gap was too small for the child to fit through, and the metal was too thick for him to bend easily. But he had to try. He grabbed the edge of the container with both hands. The metal was cold and sharp. He pulled with all his strength. His muscles burned and his hands started bleeding. But the gap grew wider, just a little more. The child inside stopped crying and watched him with wide eyes. She said something in a language Tae-won did not understand, but her voice was full of hope. "Come on," Tae-won said through his teeth, pulling harder. The metal groaned and finally gave way. The gap was now wide enough. "Come here, quickly." Tae-won reached inside and the child grabbed his arms. He pulled her out just as alarms started blaring throughout the section. Red lights flashed everywhere. Tae-won held the child against his chest and ran. Behind them, the container collapsed completely with a terrible crashing sound. Then the worst happened. The section's outer door, damaged by the collapse, began to fail. Air started rushing out into space. Tae-won's ears popped. He held the child tighter and dove through the section door. His hand slammed the emergency seal button as he fell through. The heavy door crashed shut behind them, cutting off the terrible sound of escaping air. He landed hard on his back, but he kept the child safe on his chest. For a moment, they both just lay there, breathing heavily. The child was shaking, her small body pressed against him. Tae-won could feel her heart beating very fast. "You are okay now," he said softly, even though he was not sure she could understand him. "You are safe. Har, you are safe." The child looked up at him with those large, dark eyes. Slowly, she stopped shaking. Her small hand touched his face, as if checking that he was real. Emergency teams arrived within minutes. They were mostly aliens that Tae-won recognized from around the station. They seemed shocked to see a human holding one of the Velkari children. The Velkari were powerful people in the coalition. Their species ran many of the trade routes and held important political positions. A medical team tried to take the child from Tae-won's arms, but she clung to him and made distressed sounds. Tae-won stood up carefully, still holding her. "It is okay," he told her gently. These people will help you. They are doctors. One of the medics, a kind-looking alien with 4 arms, approached slowly. She had a scanner that beeped softly. She has minor injuries, the medic said. Tae-1 finally managed to pass the child to the medical team, though she kept looking back at him as they carried her away. He watched until they disappeared around a corner. His supervisor arrived next. A tall alien named Krev, who always looked worried about something. Right now, he looked very worried. Tae-1. What happened here? Krev asked, looking at the sealed section door. Tae-1 explained everything as station engineers examined the damage. The child should not have been in that section at all. Someone must have brought her there. Or, she wandered in somehow. And the container's stabilizers had not just failed. Someone had tampered with them. While Tae-1 was giving his report, a group of important-looking Velkari arrived. They all wore expensive clothes and had guards with them. In the center of the group was a female Velkari who was clearly in charge. She was tall and elegant, with the same pale blue skin as the child. Her eyes were cold as she looked around at the damage. "Where is my daughter?" she asked. Her voice was calm but had power behind it. This was someone used to being obeyed immediately. Krev pointed toward the medical bay. The woman walked that direction without another word, and her group followed her like a wave. Tae-1 watched them go. He suddenly felt very tired. His hands hurt from the sharp metal, and his back ached from the fall. He looked down and saw his uniform was torn and bloody. "You should go to medical too," Krev said, but his tone was worried. Tae-1. "Do you know who that was?" "The child's mother, I guess," Tae-1 said. "That was Lady Yuri Kosverith. She is one of the most powerful Velkari diplomats in this sector." Krev's face went even more worried. "You just saved her daughter's life. I am not sure if that is a good thing or a bad thing for you." Tae-1 frowned. "I just did my job." "No," Krev said quietly, looking at the sealed section. "You did much more than your job. And with the Velkari, that always comes with a price." 3 days passed before Tae-1 was summoned to the diplomatic wing. He had spent those days finishing his reports and getting his hands bandaged properly. The cuts were healing well, though they still hurt when he made a fist. His supervisor had given him time off, but Tae-1 did not like sitting around doing nothing. He kept thinking about the little girl with the big dark eyes. The message came on his personal tablet. It was very formal and very clear. Lady Yuri Kosverith requested his presence at her quarters at exactly 1400 hours. The word requested was used, but Tae-1 knew it was not really a request. He put on his cleanest uniform and made sure his boots were polished. The diplomatic wing was in the upper levels of the station, where Tae-1 rarely went. Everything here was nicer. The floors were polished stone instead of metal. Real plants grew in pots along the walls. The air even smelled better, like flowers and clean water. 2 Velkari guards stood outside Lady Yuri's door. They were both tall and wore armor that looked more decorative than practical. They stared at Tae-1 with cold eyes as he approached. "I am Tae-1. I was summoned," he said simply. One guard checked a tablet, then nodded. The door opened silently. Tae-1 walked inside, and the door closed behind him with a soft sound that seemed very final. The room was beautiful. Large windows showed the stars outside. Furniture that looked like it cost more than Tae-1, made in a year, sat arranged perfectly around the space. And in the center of it all sat Lady Yuri. She was even more impressive up close. She wore robes of deep purple that seemed to shimmer when she moved. Her hair was long and dark, pulled back in an elaborate style. She was reading something on a transparent display when Tae-1 entered, and she did not look up right away. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her. Tae-1 sat. He kept his back straight and his hands on his knees, the way he had learned in the military. Lady Yuri finally looked at him. Her eyes were the same dark color as her daughter's, but where the child's eyes had been full of fear and then trust, these eyes were calculating and cold. "I have watched the security footage 17 times, she said. I wanted to understand. Exactly. What happened? She turned the display so Tae-won could see it. The footage showed him pulling at the container, then running with Hana, then diving through the door. Watching it now, Tae-won realized how close they had come to dying. Another few seconds, and they would have been pulled out into space. You risked your life for my daughter, Lady Yuri said. You did not hesitate. You did not call for backup. And wait. You simply acted. Yes, ma'am, Tae-won said. Do you know what that means in my culture? Tae-won shook his head. He knew very little about Velkari culture beyond the basic facts everyone on the station learned. Lady Yuri stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars for a long moment before speaking. When someone saves the life of a noble's child, a life debt is created. This debt is absolute and sacred. The one who saved the life becomes bound to that family. It is our oldest law, older than our ships or our technology. Tae-won felt something cold settle in his stomach. He did not like where this was going. I am here to formally declare this life debt, Lady Yuri continued, turning to face him. You will leave your current position and become my daughter's personal guardian. You will be given appropriate quarters, salary, and status. You will swear an oath of loyalty to House Kasvareth. The words hung in the air. Tae-won sat very still, processing what he just heard. She was not asking. She was telling him how his life was going to be from now on. No, Tae-won said quietly. Lady Yuri's eyes widened slightly. It was the first real expression he had seen on her face. What did you say? I said no, ma'am. I will not do that. Tae-won kept his voice respectful but firm. I have my own life. My own responsibilities. I helped your daughter because she needed help, not because I wanted a reward or a new job. Lady Yuri stared at him like he had just spoken in a language she did not know. She walked back to her chair slowly and sat down. You refuse? Yes, ma'am. Do you understand what you are refusing? The honor? The position? Most beings would kill for such an opportunity. I understand, ma'am. But I am not most beings. I am just a security guard who did what anyone should do. Tae-won met her eyes. I do not want to be bound to anyone. I help people because it is right, not because I owe them or they owe me. Lady Yuri's face became cold again. But this time, there was something else there too. Anger, maybe, or confusion. You are making a mistake, she said. I could have you removed from this station. I could make it very difficult for you to find work anywhere in Coalition space. You could, Tae-won agreed. But you would not do that. Why not? Because then you would owe me, and you would have no way to pay that debt. Your culture values honor, right? It would not be honorable to punish someone for saving your daughter's life. Lady Yuri stood up abruptly. For a moment, Tae-won thought she might actually strike him. But she just stood there, her hands clenched at her sides. Get out, she said quietly. Tae-won stood and walked to the door. It opened for him. As he stepped through, he heard her voice again. This is not finished. Tae-won looked back. Lady Yuri was still standing in the same spot, but now she looked less angry and more lost. I know, ma'am, Tae-won said. But it cannot be finished the way you want it to be. He left the diplomatic wing and went back to his small quarters in the guard section. His roommate, Dong-hyun, another human guard, looked up from his book. How did it go with the fancy alien lady? Dong-hyun asked. Tae-won sat down on his bunk with a heavy sigh. I think I just made a very powerful enemy. What did you do? I told her no. Dong-hyun's eyes went wide. You told a Velkari noble, no? Are you crazy? Maybe, Tae-won said, looking at his bandaged hands. But I am not going to let someone own my life just because I did the right thing. Dong-hyun shook his head in disbelief. Well, it was nice knowing you. When you disappear mysteriously, I will tell people you were a good man. Tae-won laughed, but it sounded tired. He lay back on his bunk and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the diplomatic wing, A little girl with big dark eyes probably wondered why the man who saved her did not come to see her. That thought hurt more than his hands did. But Tae-won had learned long ago that doing the right thing often hurt. That did not make it less right. 2 weeks went by, and Tae-won heard nothing from Lady Yuri. He went back to his normal shifts, walking the quiet corridors at night and writing boring reports about nothing. He tried not to think about the little girl. He tried not to wonder if she was okay or if she asked about him. Dong-hyun said he was being stupid and sentimental. Maybe he was right. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning. Tae-won had just finished his shift and was heading to the cafeteria for breakfast when alarms started blaring throughout the station. Not the normal alarms. These were security alarms. The kind that meant something very bad had happened. His supervisor's voice came over his radio immediately. All security personnel report to your stations. We have a code black in the diplomatic wing. Code black meant attempted murder. Tae-won ran. He was not assigned to the diplomatic wing, but his feet carried him there anyway. When he arrived, he saw security teams everywhere. Medical personnel rushed past him, and standing in the hallway, looking smaller than he had ever seen her, was Lady Yuri. She was still wearing her night robes. Her perfect hair was messy, and for the first time, she looked afraid. Tae-won walked up to her, ignoring the guards who tried to stop him. "What happened?" he asked. Lady Yuri looked at him. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. "Someone tried to kill Hana again," she said, her voice shaking. "One of my own guards. He tampered with the environmental controls in her room." If her tutor had not noticed the temperature dropping, she did not finish the sentence. Tae-won felt cold rage settle in his chest. "Where is she now?" "Medical bay." "She is fine. Just frightened." Lady Yuri wrapped her arms around herself. "The station's security is investigating, but I do not trust them anymore. Someone on the inside is helping whoever wants my daughter dead." "Why?" Tae-won asked. "Why would someone want to hurt a child?" "Because she is my heir. Because my political enemies know that killing me would start a war, but killing her would destroy me without direct consequences." Lady Yuri looked at him. "Because in my world, children are tools in games of power." Tae-won had seen many terrible things in his life, but the casual way she said that made him feel sick. "I need to see her," he said. "Why?" "You refused to help us. You said you wanted your own life. I said I would not be owned. I did not say I would not help." Tae-won met her eyes. "Take me to her." Lady Yuri studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. She led him through the corridors to the medical bay. The guards there tried to stop Tae-won, but Lady Yuri waved them away. Inside a private room, Hana sat on a medical bed. She looked so small and scared. When she saw Tae-won, her whole face changed. She jumped off the bed and ran to him, saying something in her language that sounded like joy and relief mixed together. Tae-won knelt down, and she threw her arms around his neck. She was crying, but not from pain, from happiness. "Hey there, little one," Tae-won said softly, patting her back. "You are okay now. You are safe." Hana pulled back and looked at his face. She touched his cheek, like she had done the first time, as if making sure he was real. Then she started talking very fast in her language, pointing at him and then at herself. "She has been asking about you every day," Lady Yuri said quietly from the doorway. "She calls you the strong human who saved me. She draws pictures of you. She..." Lady Yuri's voice broke slightly. "She trusts you more than she trusts her own people now." Tae-won looked at the child in his arms. She was smiling now, holding onto his uniform like she would not let go. "I was wrong," Lady Yuri continued. "I tried to force you to serve me, because that is how things work in my world. Everyone serves someone. Everyone has a price. But you showed me that humans are different." Tae-won stood up, still holding Hana. "Not all humans, but maybe some of us." Lady Yuri took a deep breath. I am not here to demand any more. I am here to ask. Please, Tae-won, help me protect my daughter. Not forever. Just until we find out who is trying to kill her. Just until the danger passes. You cannot trust your own guards, Tae-won said. No, but I can trust you. You already proved that. Tae-won looked down at Hana. She was looking up at him with those big dark eyes, full of trust and hope. He thought about saying no again. He thought about his quiet life and his simple job. But he also thought about what would happen to this child if he walked away. Okay, he said. But I have conditions. Lady Yuri nodded. Name them. First, this is temporary. When the threat is over, I go back to my life. Second, I am not your servant or your guard. I am Hana's protector. That means I make decisions about her safety, and you do not argue. Third, I do this because I choose to, not because I owe you. Agreed, Lady Yuri said immediately. Tae-won was surprised. Just like that? Just like that. Lady Yuri smiled, and it was the first real smile he had seen from her. You are already proving to be different from anyone I have ever met. Why should your conditions be normal? That afternoon, Tae-won moved his few belongings to a room next to Hana's quarters in the diplomatic wing. Dong-hyun helped him carry his stuff and kept shaking his head. You are definitely crazy, Dong-hyun said. Probably, Tae-won agreed. But you are also a good man. Too good for this universe, maybe. Dong-hyun clapped him on the shoulder. Be careful. These noble types have long memories and complicated politics. And, after Dong-hyun left, Tae-won sat on his new bed. The room was 5 times bigger than his old quarters. It had a real window and expensive furniture. But he missed his small bunk already. A soft knock came at his door. When he opened it, Hana stood there holding a drawing. She had made a picture of him pulling her from the container. In the picture, he was drawn much bigger than he really was, like a giant. And he was smiling, even though he remembered being terrified that day. She handed him the drawing and said something in her language. Then, she hugged his legs and ran back to her room before he could say anything. Tae-won looked at the drawing for a long time. Maybe Dong-hyun was right. Maybe he was too good for this universe. But looking at that child's drawing, Tae-won thought maybe the universe needed more people who were too good for it. Tae-won had been protecting Hana for 3 weeks when the summit was announced. It was a big diplomatic event, and Lady Yuri had to attend. She did not want to go. Tae-won could see the worry on her face every time someone mentioned it. I should cancel, she said one morning while Hana ate breakfast. It is too dangerous. If you cancel, you show weakness. Tae-won said. And weak people become targets. You taught me that. Lady Yuri gave him a sharp look. I am impressed you were listening. I always listen. Tae-won watched Hana trying to use human-style utensils. She was getting better at it. We will be fine here. The quarters are secure. I have checked every entrance and every system myself. You have been spending time with my security teams, Lady Yuri observed, learning from them. Though I think human security training is better in some ways. He smiled slightly. We are very good at expecting the worst. Sense 9. Tens, I'm Asa, where Company said. Lady Yuri stood and smoothed her formal robes. She looked beautiful and powerful. Like always. But Tae-won had learned to see past that now. He could see the mother underneath. Worried about her child. Keep her safe, Lady Yuri said quietly. Always. After Lady Yuri left for the summit, Tae-won settled into his routine. He played simple games with Hana, teaching her human words, while she taught him words in her language. She was a smart child, quick to learn. They were building a tower from colored blocks when Tae-won's instincts screamed at him. Something was wrong. He could not say what exactly. Just that the air felt different. The small hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He stood quickly and walked to the door panel. The security display showed normal readings. The hallway was empty, but something was still wrong. "Hana," he said calmly, "we are going to play a new game. It is called the quiet game. You go hide in your room and be very quiet. Okay?" Hana looked at him with wide eyes. She was young, but she understood fear. She nodded and ran to her bedroom. Taewon checked his weapon. It was a standard guard stunner, not powerful enough to kill but strong enough to drop most species. He wished he had something stronger. The lights went out. Emergency lights kicked in immediately, but they were dim and red. In that moment, Taewon knew. This was it. The real attack. He moved to the door and locked it manually, then dragged a heavy table in front of it. It would not stop anyone for long, but it would slow them down. The door controls sparked and died. Someone was cutting power to the room. Taewon heard sounds from the hallway. Footsteps. Multiple people. Moving with purpose. He backed toward Hana's room, keeping his eyes on the door. His mind raced through options. The quarters had one main entrance and one emergency exit that led to a maintenance shaft. But if the attackers were smart, they would have people at both points. The door exploded inward. Not from cutting or hacking, but from an actual explosive. The heavy table Taewon had placed was blown across the room. Smoke filled the air. Through the smoke came 4 figures. They wore combat armor and carried real weapons, not stunners. These were professional killers. Taewon fired his stunner at the first one. The shot hit the armor and did nothing. The figure did not even slow down. Time seemed to slow. Taewon's training took over. The military had taught him that when you are outgunned, you use your environment. You use surprise. You make them scared of you. He grabbed a chair and threw it hard. It hit the second attacker in the faceplate, cracking it. While that one stumbled, Taewon dove behind the heavy couch. Shots burned through the air where he had just been standing. "The child," one of them shouted. "Find the child." 2 of them moved toward Hana's room. Taewon could not let them reach her. He stood up and threw his stunner at the nearest one. It hit them in the head, not doing much damage but getting their attention. "You want her?" Taewon shouted. "You go through me first," he charged. It was stupid and desperate, but it worked. Humans did not charge people with guns. It was unexpected. The attacker hesitated for just a second, and that was enough. Taewon grabbed the alien's weapon arm and twisted hard. Something cracked. The alien screamed. Taewon took the weapon and fired point blank into the second attacker's chest. The armor held, but the impact sent them flying backward. Pain exploded in Taewon's shoulder. He had been shot. His left arm went numb and hot at the same time, but he kept moving. He could not stop. The third attacker was raising their weapon. Taewon dove and rolled, coming up next to the fallen table. He flipped it up as a shield, just as shots hit it. The heavy wood burned and smoked, but held. Using the table as cover, Taewon charged again. He hit the third attacker like a truck, smashing them into the wall. The alien's helmet cracked against the stone. They went down and did not get up. That left one. The fourth attacker was at Hana's door now, trying to open it. Taewon could hear Hana crying inside. "No." Taewon growled. His shoulder was on fire, and blood was running down his arm. But he raised the stolen weapon and fired. The shot hit the fourth attacker in the back. They fell. Taewon stood there, breathing hard, his vision going blurry from pain and adrenaline. The room was destroyed. 3 attackers were down, unconscious or dead. The fourth was groaning on the floor. He stumbled to Hana's door and opened it. The little girl was hiding under her bed, crying. She scrambled out and ran to him. "It is okay," Taewon said, his voice shaking. "It is over. You are safe." He sank down to his knees, still holding her. His shoulder was bleeding badly, and the room was spinning. but he kept his good arm around Hana, keeping himself between her and the door. Security forces arrived minutes later. They found Tae-won sitting with his back against the wall, barely conscious, with Hana in his lap. The 4 attackers were restrained and identified. They were professional mercenaries, hired by a rival house. Lady Yuri arrived before the medical team finished treating Tae-won's shoulder. She saw the destroyed room, and her daughter, still clinging to the wounded human. Her face went through many expressions very quickly. Fear, anger, relief, gratitude. She knelt beside them. Hana immediately reached for her mother, but she would not let go of Tae-won either. So, Lady Yuri held them both. "You kept your promise," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Always will," Tae-won said. His words were slurred from the pain medication. "She is worth it." The medical team insisted on taking Tae-won to the bay, but Hana would not let them take him alone. She held his hand the whole way, talking to him in both their languages, telling him he was brave and strong and that she loved him. Tae-won barely heard her, but he held her hand back and did not let go. 6 months passed like a strange dream. Tae-won's shoulder healed, though it still ached when it rained. The attackers had talked during interrogation, giving up the name of the rival house that hired them. Lady Yuri dealt with that house swiftly and completely. The threat was over, which meant Tae-won's job was done. He stood in his quarters in the diplomatic wing, packing his few belongings back into the same bag he had brought 6 months ago. Most of the fancy things Lady Yuri had given him stayed behind. He only took what was his. And one drawing that Hana made, of the 3 of them together, all holding hands. There was a knock on his door. He knew who it was before he opened it. Hana stood there in her sleeping clothes, even though it was the middle of the day. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. Behind her stood Lady Yuri, looking uncomfortable and sad. "You are leaving," Hana said in human language. She had gotten very good at it. "Yes," Tae-won said. He knelt down so they were at eye level. "The bad people are gone now. You are safe, which means I can go back to my normal life. But I do not want you to go." Hana's voice broke. "You are," she said a word in her own language that Tae-won had learned meant something like chosen family. Tae-won felt his heart break a little. "I know, little one. But this was always the deal. I help until you are safe. Then I go back to being a regular guard. Please," Hana whispered. Tears ran down her blue cheeks. "Please do not leave me." Lady Yuri stepped forward and put her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Hana, we talked about this. Tae-won has his own life. We cannot force him to stay. But why?" Hana looked at her mother. Then, at Tae-won. "Why does he not want to stay with us? Did I do something wrong?" "No," Tae-won said firmly. "You did nothing wrong. You are perfect. But grown-ups have to make hard choices sometimes. And I have to go back to my old life." Except even as he said it, Tae-won wondered if it was true. His old life seemed so empty now. Walking quiet corridors alone. Writing boring reports. Going back to his small quarters where no one drew pictures for him or taught him new words in an alien language. Hana turned and ran back to her room. The door shut with a soft sound that seemed very final. Lady Yuri and Tae-won stood in silence for a moment. "She will be okay," Lady Yuri said, though she did not sound convinced. "Children are resilient, are they?" Tae-won asked. "Or do we just tell ourselves that? Because it is easier than admitting we hurt them." Lady Yuri flinched like he had hit her. "That is not fair." "Maybe not." Tae-won picked up his bag. "But it is true." He started to walk past her, but she caught his arm. "Wait," she said. "Please, I need to say something." Tae-won stopped and looked at her. In 6 months, he had learned to read her face better. Right now she looked like someone trying to be brave about something terrifying. "I was wrong about humans," Lady Yuri said. "I thought you were all simple and crude. Good for labor and fighting, but not much else. I thought your emotions made you weak And your loyalty could be bought. She let go of his arm and stepped back. But you showed me the truth. Your emotions make you strong. Your loyalty cannot be bought because you give it freely to those who deserve it. And when you care about someone, you would die for them without hesitation. Lady Yuri's voice shook slightly. You did for my daughter what none of my own people would do. You protected her not because of duty or debt, but because you chose to care about her. She makes it easy, Taewon said quietly. She is a good kid. She loves you more than she loves most of her own family. And I, Lady Yuri took a breath. I have come to trust you more than anyone else in my life, which is why I need to ask you one more time, but differently. I am not going to be owned, Taewon said. Tae, I know. I am not asking you to be. Lady Yuri looked him in the eyes. I am asking you to choose. Not because of debt or honor or duty. Not because I demand it or because it is logical. I am asking you to choose Hana. Choose to be part of her life because you want to be. Because she needs you. And maybe you need her too. Taewon wanted to say no. He wanted to walk away and go back to his simple life. But he thought about Hana crying in her room. He thought about teaching her to read human books. He thought about the way she smiled when she beat him at the games they played. He thought about protecting her from nightmares and attackers, and a universe that saw children as tools instead of treasures. I have a friend, Taewon said slowly. Donghyun. We served in the military together. He tells me I am too good for this universe. He is right. Maybe. But standing here, I think maybe the problem is not that I am too good. The problem is that I keep trying to live a small life when I could be living a big one. Taewon set his bag down. If I do this, if I choose to stay, I need you to understand something. What? I am not doing this for you. I am doing this for Hana. She is the one I am loyal to. She is the one I choose. If you and I disagree about what is best for her, I will do what I think is right, not what you tell me. Lady Yuri smiled. It was genuine and warm. I would not have it any other way. Taewon nodded. Then I need to go tell a little girl that I am not leaving after all. Hana's face when he told her was worth everything. She jumped into his arms and held him so tight he could barely breathe. She kept saying, "Thank you," in both languages. Over and over. That night, Taewon sent a message to Donghyun, explaining what he decided. Donghyun's response came quickly. You are definitely crazy. But you are also happy. I can tell. Be good, brother. Take care of your kid. Your kid. The words made Taewon smile. 3 months later, Taewon stood in the grand hall of the Velkari homeworld. Lady Yuri had to return for political reasons, and Hana went with her. Which meant Taewon went too. The homeworld was beautiful and strange. Cities that looked like they were made of glass and light. 3 moons in the sky. People everywhere, all elegant and refined, and looking at the human guard with curiosity, and some with disdain. Taewon wore ceremonial armor that had been made specially for him. It was fancy and uncomfortable. But Hana had clapped with joy when she saw him in it. So he wore it without complaint. Now he stood beside Hana at a state function, one hand resting on the hilt of his ceremonial weapon. Hundreds of important Velkari watched them. Hana stood proud and straight, holding his other hand. She had insisted. When her mother tried to tell her that it was not proper for a child to hold hands with their guard during formal events, Hana had said something in their language that made Lady Yuri laugh and give up. Later, Taewon asked what Hana had said. She told me that you are not just her guard. You are her chosen family. And family holds hands. Lady Yuri smiled. How could I argue with that? As the ceremony went on, Taewon noticed many of the Velkari staring at him. Some with suspicion, some with curiosity, some with what might have been respect. Lady Yuri had told him that by accepting him, she was making a statement. She was showing that humans were not just useful labor, They were worthy of trust, of position, of standing beside nobility. Tae-won did not care much about politics. But he cared about the little girl holding his hand. He cared about showing her that family was not about blood, or species, or politics. It was about choosing to protect each other, choosing to stand together. After the ceremony, they returned to their quarters. Hana was tired but happy. She changed into her sleeping clothes and brought Tae-won a book to read to her. Like he did every night. It was a human book about a knight protecting a princess. Hana loved it. Even though the knight was human and the princess was alien in her version of the story. Tae-won? She said sleepily when he finished the story. Yes, little one? You are my knight. You will always protect me, right? Always, he promised. And you will never leave? Tae-won thought about his old life. His small quarters. His quiet shifts. His simple existence. It all seemed so far away now. Like it belonged to a different person. Never, he said. You are stuck with me now. Hana smiled and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Tae-won sat there for a while, watching her breathe. He thought about the choices that brought him here. Pulling her from that container. Refusing Lady Yuri's first demand. Agreeing to protect her temporarily. Choosing to stay. Each choice had led him further from the life he thought he wanted. But each choice had also led him closer to a life that meant something. A life where he mattered to someone who mattered to him. Lady Yuri appeared in the doorway. She had changed from her formal robes into something simpler. She is asleep? She whispered. Just now. Lady Yuri came and looked down at her daughter. Her face softened with love. Thank you. For everything. For choosing us. Thank you for letting me, Tae-won said. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the alien city glowed with lights. 3 moons hung in the sky. He was far from Earth. Far from everything familiar. But standing here, watching over a sleeping child who called him family, Tae-won realized something. Home was not a place. It was not a planet, or a station, or a set of quarters. Home was wherever the people you chose to protect slept safely. And Tae-won was home.